It's time for the battle of the book jar. Hello, everyone. It is time to dip into Mr. Snidely here again. We are going to have another battle of the book jar. We are going to see if Snidely or I am more successful this month, if he gives me some nice books, or if he gives me some books that I dislike and need to DNF and unhaul. As you may have gathered from my past episodes, this is my book jar that contains all of the books that are on my shelf that are unread, except for in some cases it'll be like like I'll put the first book in a series in here. And if there's certain books that I knew that a lot of these ones are older books, and some of them are ones that I've had for years. Some of them, if they were on my shelf and I knew that they were authors that I was going to keep, I didn't put them in here. Some of them I did. Yeah, it's kind of just all over the place. How this works is I have to pull a fiction book and a nonfiction book out of this jar. Then I go and find them on my shelf or in my parents' basement. I don't have them all on my shelves yet. And I give them a try. Now, if I end up liking the book, I will read it and rate it and everything. If I dislike it, I have the option of DNFing and unhauling. But the goal here is to go through all of the older books on my shelf and decide what I'm keeping and what I'm unhauling to make room for, in particular, to make room for more modern books. A lot of the books that I have are from the 90s and early 2000s. However, I did, in order to give myself a little bit more fun, I did put in, anytime I buy new books, I've been adding them to the jar. So sometimes I may get a book or a series that is something that I've started more recently. So that just gives me a little bit of extra incentive to want to pull books out of the jar. Now, the crazy part is that I blame Snidely here for giving me horrible book recommendations. But the problem is that these are all books that I bought, so it really is my own fault. But I need someone to blame, so Snidely here takes the rap. If he would just give me the books I want to read out of there, we wouldn't have this problem, would we, Snidely? But no, you have to be difficult all the time. So how about we draw a fiction and a nonfiction out of here and see what we get? Now, for the blog, it kind of depends on how many books I get out of here and what age range and that sort of thing. If I get done a book quickly, I may draw more books. There's no set number of books that I have to read per blog. I just have to have a fiction and a nonfiction. The colors in here don't really mean anything. When I originally started this, they did, but they've gotten mixed up over the last couple of years. The only one that I've stayed true to, because I have to pick a nonfiction and a fiction, is that my nonfiction are all the blue ones. So if I pull out a blue one, it's a nonfiction. Any other color, it could be any genre. So let's see what we get. I'm stir it up real good because I added in a few more books the other day. Stir it up really good. And let's see what we get. This is my nonfiction. I got Where the Wagon Led. That sounds like probably some kind of Western history. I will go and find that. Let's find a fiction one too. What is this one? This one is Fear Nothing by Dean Koontz. Okay, I will go and find those and see what I think of them. I have found both books. Here they are. So let's start with this one. This is Fear Nothing by Dean Koontz. Now, I collected a lot of Dean Koontz books back in the day, but I haven't read a lot of them. I started collecting them after I bought Life Expectancy, and I really enjoyed that one. That's always been my favorite Dean Koontz. And so some of his older ones I don't care for as much as his newer ones, but this is one that I've actually been really interested in trying out because this is the one, it's, I believe this might even be a series, the Moonlight Bay series. I can't remember for sure, but this is the first one anyway. And it is about a guy named Christopher Snow, and he has a rare genetic disorder that doesn't allow him to be outside during the sunlight. So he has to essentially embrace the dark, uh, and comes to know that he knows the night as no one else can. Its mystery, its beauty, its terrors, and the eerie silken rhythms that seduce one into believing anything, even freedom, is possible. And then one night, apparently, he witnesses a series of disturbing incidents that sweep him into a violent mystery that only he can solve. So that has always sounded interesting to me. I've always been curious about that character. So I will read that one. And then I found the other one here, which is Where the Leg and Wed. I've been having trouble speaking lately too. Where the Wagon Led by R.D. Simons. And this one here, I thought it was just going to be just another one of those uh, Western history books that I sometimes collected back in the day. But this one actually does sound really interesting. It is about a guy, well, it's R.D. Simons. He was born in England in 1898 and came to Canada as a teenager to work on a ranch. So he's telling about his initiation of into life as a cowboy, learning to herd cattle, saddle a horse in the dark, till time by the stars, help a cow give birth, train a cow pony, endure long hours in the saddle, etc. And he brings to life some of the interesting characters that he met over the years. And it just sounds like it could be a really interesting book about early ranch life and kind of the adventures that some of these young men faced when they decided to go out and and work cattle uh, in the middle of nowhere, essentially. So I'm really curious to see what that one is going to be like. So that'll be my nonfiction, and this will be my fiction. And I will come back with an update once I've read a couple chapters of each of these and let you know whether I'm vibing with them or not. everyone, update time. So I got a start on both of these books, Where the Wagon Led and Fear Nothing by Dean Koontz. And so I thought I'd give you a little update. I'm not super far in. I'm on to chapter 3 in Fear Nothing by Dean Koontz. So far, I'm really liking the characters already. The main character has a medical condition so that he can't be outdoors. He can't be anywhere near sunlight, or it could kill him. And so he's a super interesting character. I'm already liking his character a lot. Basically, what's happened at the beginning is his father is dying of cancer. He's headed to the hospital to say his goodbyes and everything. But you're just getting to kind of know the character, and then his girlfriend is with him as well, and you just basically it's right at the very beginning, so I don't really know what all is going to happen and what the mystery is going to be yet, but it definitely has got my attention in the first 2 chapters with the main character. So I'm definitely going to keep reading that one. And it is a duology, so if I like it, then I can read the next one. And then Where the Wagon Led by R.D. Simons. I have gotten through the introduction, which was actually quite long. It was about 30 pages of, there was a foreword about the author, because he's kind of a famous historical author from Western Canada. And then there was a whole prologue written by him about life in, I believe it was 1907, when there was a really terrible winter and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm just about to get on to chapter 1. And so far, I'm liking the voice. It's going to be a very interesting book. It's written by a man who actually lived that life, so he has intimate knowledge of everything. It's kind of a narrative nonfiction in that it's basically his memories of things. So it's not like, hyper researched history, but it's his memories of these people and places and events that he was involved in. So that should be really interesting. And it also apparently, according to like the introduction and stuff, he was a naturalist and was against all the mechanization and stuff that has taken place, and how it's destroying the land, and how the animals and everything. So I'm sure there's going to be some of that kind of stuff in here as well. And yeah, so far it sounds like it's going to be quite interesting. Like I say, I'm just past the introduction, so I'm looking forward to kind of getting really into his voice and hearing the stories to see whether I'm going to end up enjoying it. So that's my little update for now. Those 2 books I'm going to keep reading, and if I get them done without too much time, then we'll draw some more from the jar. But otherwise, they're going quite well. Hopefully there's not too much wind noise, but I thought while I'm finishing up filling water troughs on this very, very warm day, I would tell you guys where I'm at with Fear Nothing. So I've gotten about 150 pages into it, so that's like 30%, I think.
and it's getting really interesting. So like the main character, who has the medical condition, it's all still the first night after, like when his father died, and he has gone to try and figure out what happened, because his father's body was switched with the body of a dead hitchhiker. And he's been pursued by people, and he had this nurse call him to come and give him some information. And she was going to give him information, and then things happened there that are very dangerous. And so overall, like, the story is really good. I'm really enjoying the main character. Just his challenges and the way it affects the story are really good. Like, you really feel for him, and then it adds that extra element of suspense because, like, for example, with his condition, he can't even handle like indoor fluorescent lights and things. So he needs to look at a place or go somewhere, and he's in danger because the lights are on, or people know that about him because he's the only one like that in their community. And so they'll go ahead and like they'll turn all the lights on or whatever. And it just adds that extra element of trouble for him, or you using those big searchlights to find him and things like that. So it just adds this extra element to it, the element to the danger, and also an element to his character. I like his character because he's a very optimistic sort of guy. Like, it's you're talking about somebody who has had a lot of difficulty in his life, but he doesn't look at it like that. He kind of looks at like every day as a gift sort of thing. And so so he's very optimistic, and so you immediately, from the very beginning, you like him and you care about him. And so now that he's in all this deep trouble, you're really still caring about him a lot, and you want him to get out of it. So yeah, that's where I'm at with that one. I'm at, like I say, about 30%. I haven't read much more in the nonfiction yet. I got to get my button gear on that one. I've read a couple of chapters, and it's interesting so far, but I'm not really into it yet. It's very memoirish, and he mentions a lot of like names and things like that aren't people that I know or anything, and so there's quite a bit of name dropping of characters that maybe at the time when it was written were well-known Western characters, sort of thing. But yeah, so I'm a little ways into that one. I'm gonna try and do some more reading today because it's way too hot to be doing anything outdoors here other than filling the water troughs. And it's like supposed to get up to 34 or 35 degrees today. And by 10 a.m. it was already 29 Celsius, which is ridiculous. So yeah, but I will finish filling the water and we will go in and have something to eat and try and relax in the air conditioning. I see I have a parrot behind me on my chair. Augie. Augie. Oscar. Oscar. What you doing? So last night I finished Fear Nothing by Dean Koontz, and I actually really enjoyed this one. I ended up giving it 4 stars. It was a wild adventure. I definitely did not see where the story was going, and it was very, very interesting where it ended up. I am looking forward to reading the second book in the duology to see what else happens to these characters. The one really strong strength of this book was the characters. I really enjoyed Chris's character, and then his girlfriend and his other friend, Bobby. They were just such good characters. I really enjoyed them. And of course, I loved the dog, Orson. He was one of my favorite characters as well. And I really want to see where he went with the book with the story in the second book. So because I'm done this one, I am going to go ahead and draw another book out of the jar because I still am working on the nonfiction one. I do have a slight update on the nonfiction one. I have been reading more, and as I'm getting into it, I'm enjoying it even more. At first, I was kind of not really sure because there was the first few chapters was kind of a lot of name dropping and that sort of thing that of people that I didn't know because it was written quite a while ago, and it was key players in the West back in the day, but not people that I have heard of. But once he started to really get into the stories, then it started to get really interesting. His writing style is very readable, and I am definitely quite enjoying it. I'm not super far yet, but we'll see. I will continue reading that one and let you know what my final thoughts are. So I'm going to grab Snidely here. Here we have good old Snidely again. So let's see what he will give me for a fiction book this time. Whoops. That was a blue one anyway. I can't have a blue one. That's nonfiction. Let's see. What's this one? Show you guys first. The Lottery Winner. Oh, I think that's Mary Higgins Clark. I've never read a Mary Higgins Clark before, but my sister loves them, so we have a ton of them. So I will pull that off the shelf and let you know what it's about. Here is The Lottery Winner by Mary Higgins Clark, and it turns out that this one is actually a collection of short stories. It's a character named Elvira Meehan, who made her first appearance in the book Weep No More, My Lady, and now it's her and her devoted mate Willie. They turn to crime solving on a grand scale, and it looks like it's a collection of short stories that have them solving various crimes. Let's see here. Yeah, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 short stories in there. So I will give that one a read, let you guys know what I think, and I will continue reading the nonfiction, and we'll come back with an update. Go crazy. This little guy is nuts. He's so round too. Look at him. So I got a little start on. Are you just going to be squirming the whole time? Oh yeah, squirm, 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 on off he goes. I got a start on The Lottery Winner by Mary Higgins Clark. This is it's a bunch of short stories with these characters from one of her other books. And I read the first one last night, and I thought it was fine. It was your typical mystery short story. I'm don't know if I'm going to, because they're all the same character, I don't know if I'm going to rate each short story or if I'll just rate the whole book, which is probably what I'll do. But in the first story, Elvira and her husband Willie get back from a vacation. They won the lottery a few years before, won $40 million, and so their life has changed. And but they're on a trip, and they get back, and their nephew has been staying in their fancy apartment, and he's a playwright. And when they get back, they find he's not there, and in the bedroom closet is the body of a dead woman who is the lead actress in his most recent play on Broadway or off Broadway. So that's where that one starts. And so you kind of get into Elvira's mind a little bit and her way of thinking and helping to solve things. So that's the first story in that one. And I'm going to just keep on reading that one. I'm going to keep on reading the nonfiction as well and see if I can finish those. I'm hoping to maybe finish them this week. It's hard to say. I've got a lot of things going on this week, but I'm going to attempt that, and I will let you guys know when I get a little further in both books. A couple nights ago, I finished The Lottery Winner by Mary Higgins Clark, and I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. It was a fun read. It was very much cozy mystery sort of thing. You're following Elvira and her husband Willie, and it's a bunch of short stories of them going through these adventures where Elvira is solving mysteries. And I will say, for one thing, it suffered from the usual issue that a lot of cozy mysteries have, in particular cozy short stories all about the same character, is it gets a little unbelievable that she can end up in all these situations where she's forced to solve mysteries and where things happen to her that where her life is in danger and all this kind of stuff as many times as it is. So that part, of course, is a little bit unbelievable, but at the same time, I know I'm reading a cozy mystery, and that is a typical aspect of cozy mysteries. Often, it's quite unbelievable that the main character ends up in so many mysterious situations and so many life and death situations when they're not actually in a job that would normally give them that issue. So other than that, the stories were cute. They were Nothing in it was very suspenseful because it was just short stories. And I had fun reading it. I'm curious to read some of Mary Higgins Clark's other things that are like, the actual suspense thrillers and stuff, because I did like her voice, and it was fun to read. So I did give it 3.5 stars, and I will be keeping it. I've made a lot more progress on Where the Wagon Led by R.D. Simons. That one I am now on page 185. And this one has definitely gotten a lot more interesting for me since I first started it. The first, I would say, what is it, about 140 pages were my favorite so far. And that's where he's talking about all the things that happened in his first couple of years as on the Canadian prairies as a cowboy. He came over from England when he was 18, I believe it was, and was learning to be a cowboy. And those ones that was the most interesting section, when he was a green hand learning things. I enjoyed reading about all the adventures that they would go on, and it was when the range was open, so they would, the cattle and the horses would be grazing out on wild country, and then they'd have to go round them up and everything, and the people that he met and the things that he did were very, very interesting. I really enjoyed learning about that. I'll say that he definitely, although some of the language is a little bit older style from what we would say now with respect to things like the First Nations people and everything, and the Métis people, he definitely speaks of them with respect, which I liked. He had a lot of respect for the people who were here first. And that I like, because that was one of the things that I didn't like about that one history book that I had DNF'd here earlier this year. So that part was good. I did enjoy reading about all the different characters that he met. Then in the second half, you get into the war a little bit, and I do appreciate the fact that he skipped over a lot of that. He did fight in World War I, but he skipped over a lot of that because that's not what the book's about. Because I found that when I go into a book like this, I want to be reading about what the topic is about. I know it's a memoir, but I want to be reading about the stories of being a cowboy in the early part of the century. And I know I read that one other book. It was called Homesteader. I read that one last year during a book jar challenge. And that one, the first half was really interesting. And then he got into the war and everything. And I just got really bored with it because it wasn't what I had gone into the book to read. If I was going into the book to read something, a memoir of World War I, that would be different, but I wasn't. I was going in to read a memoir about settling the West. So I appreciate the fact that he kind of skimmed over the war years, because I was worried that he would go into great detail on that when that's not what the topic of this book is, but he didn't. And then now he's into the 1920s and the work that he did helping to move horses around the countryside, still doing the cowboy work, and the way that they sold horses to the settlers and all of that. So that's kind of interesting again. But the second half of the book, I'm a little less into, just because what I was really interested in personally, it has nothing to do with the writing. The writing is good. But what I was interested in personally was the actual cowboying stuff in the open range and everything, which was what that whole first half of the book was about. So I'm going to keep reading that one, finish it up. I'm not going to pull another fiction from the jar because I'm just going to finish this one, and then we'll close off the vlog, and then we'll have another episode coming up before too long. So I'm going to keep on reading that, and I will let you know what my final thoughts are. I have finally finished Where the Wagon Led. So my thoughts on that one, I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. I really enjoyed the first half of the book. In the first half, he was talking about his adventures coming over as a young man. He was, I think, 18 or something, from England to Canada I think it was like 1905 or 6. And how he was learning to be a cowboy. In the first half of the book, it was all about his adventures. He calls it Green Hand. So it was all of his adventures as a young green guy arriving on the Canadian prairies and learning to be a cowboy at the time when it was open range and there were all these roundups to do and everything was done on horseback. And I found that section really, really interesting. That went for a good half of the book. And then when he got into the second part, which was he started with the war, and then he didn't go real deep into the war, which I kind of appreciated because I've read a few books about this time period that then do that, and that's to me kind of a completely different topic to discuss over the instead of life in the West and riding horses and whatnot. But he did go a little bit into that because he did work with horses in the war. And then he continued on talking about, buying and selling horses and all the adventures that he had as he went through the next bunch of years and through the Great Depression and everything, and how the settlers moved in and how that changed the West and when the fences came in and all that kind of stuff. So the second half of it, I wasn't quite as engaged as I was with the first half, but it was still good storytelling. There was definitely, given the age of the book, it came out in the 70s, there was definitely some language that was a little outdated, definitely, I would say. But otherwise, like, the storytelling itself was really good, and I liked the style of it. It was very much of a memoir style versus a history book, for sure. Yeah, here in the introduction, it says, he didn't research the lives that he wrote about. He was writing from his memories. So it says, his tales span the divisions we've created between memoir and fiction, history and story. Simon's shared tobacco and campfires with the real characters our novelists write about. Where the Wagon Led hovers in the nether region between fiction and nonfiction, because while Simons has called them up from memory, they have not made it to the page unembellished by the storyteller's craft. So he's telling stories about his history and his past. And would you stop eating my book, please, Smokey? So he's telling stories about his history and his past, but it's a storytelling memoir versus something that is maybe a little bit more researched. And it was a very fun one to read. That's a style that I really, really enjoy. So I did give it 3.5 stars, and I'm glad I read it. I am going to actually pass it on to my dad because I think he'll really enjoy it. Kitten, stop chewing on that, please. So that means for this challenge, I started out with Fear Nothing by Dean Koontz, which I gave 4 stars to, and definitely enjoyed, and I'm looking forward to continuing that series. Then I read Where the Wagon Led, which I gave 3.5 stars to, and enjoyed that. That was my nonfiction. And I also read The Lottery Winner by Mary Higgins Clark, which was a bunch of short stories in the cozy mystery genre. And I found that quite enjoyable, and I gave that 3.5 as well, I believe. So that is my books for this battle of the book jar, and they are all ones that I'm definitely going to keep. And I will see what the book jar gives me next time. We'll see what Snidely does to me the next time. So I hope you enjoyed this. give me a like if you did, and subscribe if you haven't already. And let me know if you've read any of these books or what your favorite style of memoir is. I'm curious as to whether you prefer memoirs that are really a lot of storytelling, or if you prefer ones that are rooted more in like the historical research, or what you like, or the style, the type of memoirs you like. I like these ones where it's, you know, talking about a life lived with interesting events like this, rather than just somebody dealing with major issues in their lives. I tend to prefer this kind where it's an adventure memoir. So that is the vlog, and I will see you guys soon on my next one. Bye. And so he was going and learning to ride and learning to. I mean, he had done some riding, but let me try that again. You guys are so distracting. Okay. So he was in the first half of the book, he was